this morning. My name is Shannon Blackwell, and I'm the Vice President of Sales for the East here at Nebraska Book Company. Joining me as speaker today is Joshlyn Mangan, Director of Human Resources. We also have Mary Sullivan, our Marketing Specialist. Mary will be helping us with our polls throughout the presentation and fielding questions. For those of you that are new to GoToWebinar, you do have a bar, as I just mentioned, to the right of your screen that will allow you to ask questions. It looks like everyone's getting the hang of that. Those questions are going to be tracked by Mary, and we do have time at the end to answer those questions as much as we can. We also want to highlight the handout that is available. There is a handout section. Hopefully you can see that. We'd love for you to download that handout and work through it as we go through the process. Does everyone see the handout? Go ahead and type that. Give everyone a minute to find it. This is going to be a great tool as we walk through some of the steps that we have here, introducing all of you to succession planning and next steps. Also, during the presentation, we will have a few polls just to get the climate of the individuals on the call with us today. Those will pop up on your screen as we talk, and you'll just answer the question, and we'll be able to see those live results, which will add a little bit to our presentation today. Wonderful. Well, before we jump in, are there any questions about the administrative pieces? Give everyone just a minute. It looks like we are in the clear. If anything pops up, don't hesitate to use that question box. Mary is monitoring that for us. So here we go. When I started the team at Nebraska nearly 2 years ago, I traveled around the territory for introductions and really almost immediately started hearing many store directors or text managers saying, you know, in just a few months or years, I'm going to be retiring. And it always prompted an additional question for me of, so what's next? Do you have a person in line to fill your big shoes? And the concept and the answer more often than not was really no. I don't know. I really haven't thought about that. And while that's focused on retirement, the whole concept of what if something happens, what if you're unable to come into the office, is your store and your position taken care of? And after a few conversations like this, it was just very clear that we had a gap here in our industry. And so today's presentation is a culmination of those conversations and that gap. And between Joshlyn and myself, we hope to help you get started developing a succession plan within your store. So let's start with that first poll. How many of those of you on the phone have a succession plan in place? Okay, we'll give everyone just a check that pretty quickly. And I think what we would expect to see is showing we've got about 79, 80% of the attendees saying no, and 20% of you saying yes. I think that's what we would expect based upon our experiences. Succession plans are so imperative in really any industry, but most recently has been cited as one of the primary reasons an institution turns to lease opportunities. So today's call is a great first step for those of you that don't have a plan, but also for those of you that may have started one and are looking for some fresh ideas. And it will be that step that ensures your store's future success and independence. So let's get started with a little bit more about what succession planning is, the why you do it, and the how you do it. Well, with that, I'll turn it over to Joshlyn.
Thanks, Shannon. It's true, there are a lot of what-ifs to consider. A common one when talking about succession planning is, what if you get hit by a bus? I know, a pretty morbid visual to get us started, but it's a popular analogy when discussing succession planning. While I certainly hope none of us meet our end at the hands of an actual bus, The reality is unexpected things happen, good and bad. What if you get sick and you can't work? What if you get an offer you can't refuse for another job? What if you win the lottery? What if you get hit by a bus? You can't avoid them all, so it's better to plan and prepare. So what is a succession plan? It's an intentional and systematic effort to ensure leadership continuity in key positions. When done effectively, a succession plan ensures retention of institutional knowledge while cultivating organization and individual advancement and growth. What it's not a guarantee of position. Rather, it represents a development plan to prepare an individual as opportunities arise within the organization. So before we invest valuable resources, including your time, money, and people, it's important to recognize what's at stake. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recently reported 1 in every 5 American workers is over the age of 65. As baby boomers approach retirement, a gap in adequately prepared leaders is a certainty. Generation Y and millennials are not being adequately prepared to lead. More and more organizations have eliminated middle management positions, opting to flatten organizations. This is historically how new leaders would have cut their teeth in leadership and provided a stepping stone to acquire the skills and knowledge needed to take on more responsibility. So ask yourself, what if you or one of your managers left? What walks out the door with you or with them? Institutional knowledge, industry experience, financial acumen, key relationships with administration? As Shannon noted, a succession plan is imperative in all industries, but our industry is beginning to take note. A recent presentation, Steve Pribble, a well-respected thought leader in the collegiate retail space, cited store managers' retirement as the #1 reason a store goes lease. In addition, a recent article in College Store Magazine by NACS noted the most likely reason an institution may put out a request is if its store is underperforming or if a director or manager is retiring, especially if a successor hasn't been identified. Not having a plan in place presents a direct threat to the future independence of your store and the legacy many of you have spent your careers building and fighting to protect. So while one person's departure may seem like a drop in the pond, to ensure that this doesn't become you, it's imperative to have a plan in place. Shannon has seen in the field firsthand the effects of this, not having that plan in place.
Just to give everyone an example, and I would imagine some of you have experienced it as well with a colleague or with a store that you were previously at, but just this past year, a client of ours suddenly became ill and was unable to work for an extended period of time. This particular person had a great store. It was extremely well run and served the institution, the faculty, the community very well. Unfortunately, when the individual fell ill, there was no what-if plan, and no one really in line to jump in while they were away. And while our friend was recovering, it opened a door. And maybe it was just a teeny tiny crack, but it opened that door, and it instilled worry in the administration. When the individual did return to the store, healthy, doing well, he was informed they were planning to explore leasing operations. When you outline a plan and grow your team, if the unexpected what-if occurs, you can avoid these seismic shifts in how your organization is run, again, if you step away. And it's just one example. We've heard many others where that can occur, and our goal here today is to kind of take you down the path how to avoid that. So let's jump into the second poll. If the what-if happened to you, which of the following most closely applies to your situation? A, I've got a right-hand person who would step right in. B, there's a team member who could handle some of what I do, but there are gaps that would exist. C, we'd likely be in trouble. Or D, somebody call in the lease providers. So we'll give everyone just a quick minute to think through that. Some great results coming in. So it looks like the large majority believe that there's a team member who could step in, but that those gaps would exist. And there are a few of you that are saying we'd likely be in trouble. And none of you are alone. I mean, being honest about your situation is really what's going to help make you make the first step to identifying what you need to effectively analyze your team in this process.
Thanks, Shannon. So in the event that any of the possible what-if scenarios do become your reality, it's our goal to have you leaving here feeling like a succession plan is achievable. So I'm sure the next question on your mind is, how and where do I get started? So we've broken it down into 6 simple and actionable steps, starting by identifying future goals, next identifying key positions and potential high potentials, initiating the conversation, creating a development plan, followed up with ongoing mentorship and coaching. I'm going to walk you through these steps with the goal that you leave here feeling like you can yourself achieve a succession plan. So you should start by identifying your future goals. Think about your own personal goals as well as the goals you're trying to achieve in your business. What are you trying to achieve? Financial stability, expansion, increased brand awareness? This process should take into consideration both your own and the institution or administration's future goals. What are you trying to achieve in the next 5, 10, or 20 years? If you are the person who wants to be the succession plan, it's important to reflect on these same questions. How would you answer them, or can you answer them? Once you have a clear handle on the future goals of the business, you need to begin by identifying key positions to consider for a succession plan. Key positions are those that are crucial to the operation of your organization and because of skill, seniority, or experience will be hard to replace. So we're going to go to that worksheet that Shannon referenced at the beginning, and I want you to think about key positions in your organization. And at this point, it's important to think about the position and not the person. Some questions to think about. Does the position have a direct impact on revenue? Does the position influence or manage the performance of others? How unique is the skill set needed to perform in the role? And most importantly, what is the risk or harm to the position, or what is the risk harm to the business if that position is left vacant? All right, now that you have a few positions in mind, the next step, and by far trickiest, is introducing the people element to the equation. As you start thinking of who your future leaders could be, it's critical to begin recognizing the difference between performance and potential. We all know those high performers. They deliver outstanding results, they exceed their metrics, they build great relationships. They're most likely your right-hand person. When you find one, you want more like them. High potentials are likely among your high performers, but not every high performer is a high potential. The key and critical difference between a high performer and high potential is the aspiration and ability to eventually serve in a leadership role. High potentials aspire to more. They generally excel at setting and meeting stretch goals, and they're engaged in the mission of the organization, constantly looking for ways to improve the business, their team, and themselves. When you have a high performer with the aspiration, the ability, and engagement to take on more, you have a high potential on your team. So we're going to go back to the worksheet and take a minute and think about who you believe could be your high potentials. Write down their name, their current title, and the position that you think they could potentially step into. The next step is to take that person or persons you have in mind and begin plotting them on the 9-box grid within your worksheet. The 9-box grid is one of my favorite development tools. It's simple and effective, and it gives this concept of performance versus potential legs. The y-axis assesses potential. The x-axis assesses performance. Someone who may be a strong performer but lacks the aspiration or ability to lead might end up in the solid or high professional box and is likely not a great candidate for a succession plan. While someone who is a consistent performer but has amazing potential exhibited through aspiration and growing ability might end up as a future star. The next step is creating a plan to help those who want to reach that consistent star box. So we're going to take a quick poll. How many of you have a consistent star? Yes or no?
The results are great, Joshlyn. We are looking at about 80% of the team have a consistent star in their box. It's kind of trickling in a little bit. It's going down to about 75, but that's a really great place to be for the individuals on the phone.
Absolutely. It is great to see that. For those of you who don't have that consistent star or have identified that person on your team, what if they're not on your bench? What next? Every new hire into your organization is an opportunity to infuse talent. While experience and industry knowledge are certainly valuable attributes when searching for a high potential, do not overlook or undervalue raw talent. You can teach somebody textbooks. You can teach them the systems you use. You can teach them the financials. Focus on the unteachable attributes: relationship building, creativity, innovation, adaptability, communication. When hiring, it's all about balance. I'm not suggesting that you ignore skills, knowledge, and experience, but as you're recruiting and building your bench, don't undervalue talent, and start asking questions from the start about the candidate's aspirations and goals. Okay, so now you know who your potentials are. Now what? This is where that intentional and systematic plan comes in. It has to start with a conversation. Only through open communication can you uncover someone's true aspirations. Your worksheet has suggestions on questions to use to get this conversation started. Begin by identifying areas of opportunity. Mentor and coach the critical skills and impart the knowledge they need. Remember to start small. Let them own a project and give more autonomy and freedom over time. Shannon has been working with a number of your peers discussing this topic and has some valuable examples of applying this model in real life. Shannon?
Thanks, Joshlyn. I've met with quite a few people in the position that I have today, and during my first few months at Nebraska, I met a member of the industry, and today we're going to call that person Eddie. And Eddie struck me as extremely sharp. As I got to know him, I learned that he was indeed a fantastic employee. He managed course materials with ease. He was always bringing new ideas to the team and sought out the ability to improve in other areas. Ultimately, he outperformed his team consistently. And as a leader, my initial thought is jackpot, put Eddie at the top of the line, top of the box, front of the line. He has great potential for advancement and to succeed others on the team. But as a leader, I really needed to understand not only what my goals were with the succession plan, but Eddie's as well. And so when I dug in deeper to Eddie's goals and passions, I found out that Eddie does not want a supervisory position. He has absolutely no desire to manage a store. And this is a prime example of how a high performer compares to a perfect fit for your succession plan. Not all high performers, as Joshlyn mentioned, will have the potential for growth, and that is perfectly okay. It doesn't hurt to keep touching base with Eddie or others on your team, just in case their goals change, ebb, flow, but it's okay if they don't. You still have a great high performer on your team. So now let's meet Beth. Beth takes initiative. She thinks very deeply on every process. She's excited about what she does. She's constantly inspiring others on the team to do more. She dives into every single aspect of the store and the bookstore industry. So she's not just focused on what she does. She has a very high level of interest in what we do and how we're successful. She can't get enough information no matter what we do. And based upon conversations with Beth, we've identified her as a member of our succession plan. But the problem is, I'm not retiring anytime soon, and I sure as heck hope a bus is not headed my way. So I have to think, how do I keep Beth on the succession track? How do I keep her from being bored, getting frustrated, losing interest? And the first thing I have to do is make sure I've created a learning environment that ebbs and flows with Beth's growth. I'm going to use the succession plan that we've developed to identify ways to keep her job fresh and challenging. I will also be talking with her consistently about that, about her job, about what she's learning, about what she likes, because always understanding where Beth is and being flexible to adjust the plan as both you grow and that individual grows is imperative to keep the succession plan on track. And while many of you might already have a great grasp or thinking about it as we're talking today of what you believe is important within your store to impart on those successors in your plan. And what I have here today are just a few suggestions from some of your colleagues. So when you think about course materials and building a succession plan around that position, clients and contacts have felt that rentals, sourcing and timing were often only known by one person. They also felt that any custom processes, especially within wholesale buyback, were never fully passed along to others, and it created a void when someone moved on. As a store director, excuse me, the ever important accounts receivable was noted, as well as reporting and customer service and training programs. How do they, as a successor, know how to train their new talent, their young people, to get them up to the level that they need them to be a successful member of their team? You'll also notice that one is left, engaging with auxiliary. So many store managers, directors, or other team members choose to have a relationship that might be less than perfect or less than engaging with the auxiliary or your administration. And a part of the succession plan is it's so important to foster a relationship that engages others, shows your value as a store, as a part of the university, and really puts your best foot forward with your campus administration. And helping your successors be a part of that relationship is going to ensure continuity and increase the comfort level overall with your administration. So let's do one of those additional polls here. Which of the following items for a store director do you think is most important for your successor to perfect? We have the accounts receivable and reporting. We also have the engagement with auxiliary, customer service, or training, engaging that young talent. Go ahead and select the one you think is most important. We also do have other. If you have something that comes to mind, please select other and note your preference in the question box. We'd love to have your feedback. So right now it's shaping up. We've got a little bit of a race going on with engagement with auxiliary and customer service. I think that's where we're going to end up. And then the next one is other. You guys have a lot of feedback on the others. We're notes of leadership, operations. I'm going to make some assumptions about the day-to-day of how things are working. What else comes to mind? Well, if anything else comes to mind as you're talking through it or thinking through it, please add those in. We agree with all of those. There's so much that you have, so much value that you can bring to the table and make sure that whoever is that successor for that position is well prepared for everything. So some of the additional things that came to mind, this last kind of bullet here, is really be a mentor. Everyone said, listen, you've got to be a mentor and don't be afraid to make your mark. Sometimes we hear people that are holding off from making decisions because they don't want to tie their team's hands down the road. And just from some of the really successful conversations is think about it from a different perspective. You aren't tying your team's hands, but passing along a well-planned and well-run organization. Taking over for you is going to be enough of a challenge for anyone, so avoid leaving them with an organization or a team that needs significant work or decisions off the bat. And involving your successors in those decision-making processes is really going to be a great way for them to learn and to smooth out any further transition. Ultimately, the people that I've talked with say succession planning is challenging. They understand it, but it's very worth it. Everyone said it was important to be ready to invest time and resources to actually grow those employees. We also heard, avoid being resentful. Succession planning is a great thing. Don't look at it as it's just your replacement. They're taking over your job, taking your things, but look at it as continuing your legacy that you've worked so hard to create. Fostering the learning environment, we've talked about that, but providing more new challenges, new problems to solve to those individuals. And make sure, give enough information, but don't tell them how to do it so that they're able to put their mark on that process. Be flexible. Understand that at some time your plan is going to fall apart. People are going to leave and you're going to feel like, oh, I did all that work. But remember, you learn each and every time. Each person is different and you gain unique perspectives. This movement is only going to make your succession plan and your team more successful. Ultimately, you just have to do your best. And in my personal opinion, a person that did his best is Jay Menninger. Jay Menninger is the store director at the University of Vermont's bookstore. And when I met Jay, it was obvious that he knew what he was doing. He has a ton of years experience and genuinely enjoys what he does. And he was actually the very first person to answer yes to my succession planning question. And having researched and implemented a successful succession plan on his campus, Jay graciously allowed us to bend his ear and provide a University of Vermont case study of sorts. So we're going to talk through that at this time. So Jay asked himself one day, what if? What if he could not go into work tomorrow due to whatever reason? And he really became startled to realize that he had spent so many years building the environment and the store that he had that could essentially collapse in the environment that existed at the time because he had no structure to beyond it. Knowing how much he had put into a store, his team, and his university, he jumped into succession planning at that moment. And up front, Jay needed to understand the environment at University of Vermont specifically. He knew he wouldn't be around forever, hoping to retire at some point. I'm sure we all feel that way. He realized his organization was very vertical, and many of his organization reported directly to him, and they had very little knowledge sharing from one person to another. And while Jay did have the luxury of an engaged administration, the ever-changing environment that we're all aware of in the campus store industry is concerning, or was concerning to him. There was no certain path or, golden ticket that could be implemented today that would then stay intact and ensure success for the years to come. And so knowing that environment about the University of Vermont, Jay decided to identify 5 ways or key items to his success. So first, he engaged administration to learn their understanding about succession planning and gain support of the overall plan and goal. He developed a goal which was to create a 5-year plan with detailed financials to ensure the team had an effective playbook to succeed over the years to come. He scoured over his organizational structure and identified opportunities to cross-train and provide pathways for team members to pursue and grow. Jay worked to know the who, the how, and the why about every single person in his staff. It's a huge initiative to him, but this really allowed him to ensure there was ample backup support for every position he had. And when there wasn't, Jay was doing exactly what Joshlyn told us to do. He began hiring with the succession plan in mind, constantly thinking forward for his organization. He developed a learning culture through mentoring, training, cross-training, and gone were the days of the silo at his institution. He worked to provide adequate knowledge to his team to avoid any gaps down the road. And Jay honestly believes there's no such thing as too much information, sharing too much information. He says to share all the knowledge you have squirreled away. You might not even know you have it squirreled away, but it's squirreled away. So find it, share it, let everyone know about it. And then the final thing is become an advocate. Jay shouted from the rooftops about the succession plan. Even today, if you see him at a conference or an event, he'll talk to you about his succession plan. He shared his vision with anyone who would listen. There actually came a point with Jay's administration that said, hey, can you stop providing updates? Of course, they were joking, but the university was well aware of Jay's team's plan and how it evolved, changed, or when it was deemed necessary for adjustment. It was a living, breathing plan that was created through collaboration, which made it all the more effective because administration does hold your future in your hands. And so being able to have them a part of that conversation and really support it was really valuable. So Jay came away with a few personal thoughts. The first one, yes, Jay is going to be retiring in the somewhat near future. And what's important is his staff knows it. The university administration knows it. And his family knows it, and we think are pretty happy about it. The succession plan has helped Jay evolve 2 very strong senior staff members. Not just one that's ready to take his position, but 2, so that there is a great line of structure behind him. And he even has more qualified staff behind those 2 individuals. The entire team now knows the looming challenges that are upon them or could be upon them, but they have prepared financially, and the entire team is prepared for both the expected and the unexpected, which is huge in an industry that is continuing to evolve. Jay firmly believes the University of Vermont bookstore will be left better than when he found them and in very, very capable hands with a very bright future ahead of them, which was really important to him. Because ultimately, Jay's going to miss the store. He's going to miss the team and the experience that he had. But he believes having this plan in place makes future transitions easier, which is really the whole point of a succession plan in the first place. And so with that, we'd like to take the opportunity to open the floor for questions. Please, everyone seems to have a good grasp on that, but just select the question section and type in any questions you might have. We'll go through the process of answering what we can, and then we will provide follow-ups to those that need them. We'll get everyone to gather their thoughts. Has everyone had a chance to pull down the handout and work through some of those items within the handout? I know there's a lot of information that's included within our presentation today. We will work to provide a follow-up to all of you that includes a PDF of the presentation as well as the handout, just in case you need it at that time. We have a question here about any suggestions for applying succession planning to a store with very small staff, 2.5 full-time employees, including me. We're all supporting multiple services, which is a unique challenge. That is a unique challenge, but it does happen for some of those smaller stores. And I'll open this up to Joshlyn as well, but my personal opinion is, knowing enough about the 2.5 full-time employees that you have currently, determining whether they can be a part of that succession plan is extremely valuable. That's your first step. But then also, you can create a succession plan without a person in play. You can go through this entire process and think about the qualities, the skills, the the desires that you need or want for the position to be successful, so that you're constantly thinking about what that person who would take that position over would look like. Joshlyn, what else do you have to add to that?
I would agree with you, Shannon. I also would say to begin that conversation, it's harder. I appreciate that with a smaller pool to draw from, but certainly still need to be assessing whether the potential is there, starting those conversations, and finding out if it's even something of interest within the staff that you have today. I think the communication is key in understanding if you are intending to move on or just simply want a plan in place for what if, to know what you've got in place today. And if not, then start having those honest conversations of, the succession plan, also to be noted, you can start building that pipeline externally. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone on your staff. So if it's not one of the 2.5 people in your store, you can start looking externally and thinking about, how do I start building relationships in the industry, tapping into my network to see how do I make sure that I'm protecting the legacy that I want to leave behind here.
The other thing you could add to that, Joshlyn, is, you're at a university or a college. You have a whole resource available to you within that organization. Lots of people move from department to department. So keeping your administration involved in your desire to make this plan and solidify the future of your store, and asking them for some additional feedback of other departments or other high performers that might be looking for some sort of shift, could be really valuable to that plan, because then you get someone who has has knowledge about your organization, about your students, about those particular components, and they can come and learn some of those other aspects at your university. That's a really good question. Any other questions popping up? Okay. Well, with that, Joshlyn and I, and really the entire team here at Nebraska Book Company, believe in the campus retail industry and see so much history, knowledge, and success. And today's presentation is just one way we hope to be a part of your store's future. Both Joshlyn and myself are here for any questions that you might have. We'll provide some contact information as a follow-up to the presentation. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you do see Jay Menninger out there, ask him how he's doing, and feel free to bend his ear as well. We thank you for your time and look forward to seeing all of you very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.